Welcome back to a brand new episode of Mastering Programming. In today's episode, I'm showing something that I personally think is very important, and that is how to deal with repeaters inside of Wix. Now, there's multiple ways that you can use repeaters. I personally use them in almost every website that I create. There's a reason for them to be there, and there's three different ways that you can deal with them. You can either manually change the information on it and set it up. You can connect it to a Wix dataset, and that's when it gets more cooler, it gets more dynamic. You can automatically add things in your dataset and have that populate your repeater. And the third way is to do that using VELO or using code to really give you some unique features, such as button clicks and so on. So that's actually exactly what I'm going to show now. Let's get started. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, and first let's actually get a repeater and add it. It takes me always like few seconds to find it, so what I'll do is I'll just come here and type in repeater. And we can see that all of these are actually repeaters. Now what I want is something very simple, maybe just some text. So I like this one. Let's go ahead and select it. I'm just gonna grab it and I'm gonna set it up over here. Now to make things even simpler, let's actually manage items and just leave. We don't need 6 items for this tutorial. So let's just keep maybe 3. Now the first way that you can use a repeater is to just manually go over here and say something like this, or let's actually just put first name and last name instead of random text. So we can put something like David Bullis. We can come over here and type David Jones. We can come over here and type something like Harley. And you can see that this is a very cool way of basically straight away creating a template, like you can see over here, adjusting the text. You can even add different images and so on. It's a very good way up until, let's say for example, you want a repeater that shows recipes or shows books or shows something that you're going to be updating. Let's say this is a list of your stuff. You don't want to go to the editor every time, having to come here. And let's say now you have a 4th member instead of just 3. What you would usually do is you would come over here, click duplicate, and now you can type it up. Now this is a decent way of dealing with it, but it does take a bit of time and it's not dynamic. So what is the better way of doing it? Now this is the second way of doing it, in which you will need to create a dataset, and it's actually very easy to do so. So all you need to do is come to this icon over here. It's called CMS. You might need to first be in dev mode. So to do this, you just need to hover over dev mode and turn this on. Mine is already on, so it shows turn off dev mode, but for you, you just need to turn it on. And suddenly you'll get access to this over here. I'm gonna click on it, and I'm going to click on your collections, and I'm going to click on create collection. Get started, and this allows me basically to create a database, or like Wix likes to call it, a collection. Here we can, let's say for example, call it we'll call it members, or let's call it website members. And the reason I'm creating it that is just so that we can visualize it. So you need to also select multiple items, and we're going to click create. Awesome. Now let's close this for a second, and you can see over here right now we've got 4 different members that are manually added. Let's actually delete it and only keep maybe 1 for now. So again, let's select our repeater, and over here we've got managed items. I can go ahead and click delete, delete, and delete, and now we've only got 1. Now let's say I want to add all my members in a database, so I can go to my collection, the one that we just created, website members, and I'm going to click on it. And you can see that we start with title. So we can actually add the different fields. So we're going to have title as the first and last name. And over here, we can come and we can select any different type of data. For now, let's just deal with text. So I'm going to get text, and here, let's say something like occupation. Very simple. And I'm going to click on save. So let's go ahead and add our first staff member. So I'm going to be adding David Bullis, and I'm just going to put the number 1 just so that we keep track on what's going on. And over here, I'm going to put my occupation, software engineer. So I want you to imagine this test case here, or our scenario, where you've got one member, his name is David Bullis, and then the occupation is software engineer. And now, instead of actually having to come and manually type in David Bullis, all you need to do is, again, click on the plus icon. You're going to now scroll down to CMS. You're going to click on dataset. And now you've got this dataset object over here. You're going to click on settings. And you're going to select which dataset you would like to use on this page. In our case, we want to use website members. That's the one that we just added. And we're going to set it to data mode, read. We only want to read from it. We don't want to write from it. And that's all the filters that we need, actually. So I'm going to close that. Now what we need to do is we need to click on the repeater. Again, if you're clicking somewhere else, just hover over the repeater and click over again. And you'll see this sort of like squiggly line. You just need to click on it. It tells you choose a dataset. And we're going to connect it to that dataset that we added over here. So I'm going to click on it. There we go. So now this repeater is connected to our dataset. And what that means is that it will show boxes or repeat the boxes based on the number of items that we have in our dataset. So right now we've only got one item. If I go over here, go to my collections and click on website manager. Let's add a second item. So we can come here and say Harley James, and we can say something like doctor. And now when I close this, if you can see that I don't even need to click preview, straight away the repeater shows 2 items. But we're having an issue that it's not actually displaying any of those information. So what we need to do in that case is all we need to do is just after we've connected the repeater to the dataset, we need to then click on the exact element that we want. So let's say this text2, and we're going to click on this wiggly line over here. We'll confirm that the dataset is actually in fact website members, that one. And we're going to click text. We want it to connect to title. And I'm going to close this. And straight away, you can actually see that we've got the 2 different names that we added. What if we want to add a different value? Then we need to come over here. We'll click on this. We're going to select occupation. So that is, remember, that's the name of the field that we want. And now it says doctor. Let's have a quick look. We can also open the collection through here. So you simply click on the collection, manage settings, manage content, sorry. You can see that we've got Harley James as doctor and David Bullis as software engineer. And that's exactly the information we show. Now what happens if in the future that person changes occupation? Well, guess what? You don't have to go to the editor and change the information. You can actually go to your CMS, which is, by the way, also available. So if I go on my website, and you can actually edit the database directly from the dashboard by going CMS, and you'll find website members. And you can just change it here, but because I'm in the editor, I'm just going to do it in the editor, otherwise it might cause problems. But basically, you can come here and change this from being doctor, let's say, to lifesaver. And now if I click this button, you can see that the occupation automatically changes to lifesaver, which just shows you how dynamic this is. And you can also play around with the editor, with the layout on what gets viewed. For example, I can click over here, click on layout, and I can choose to make them right next to each other. You want to change the order? Then what you will need to do is you'll need to click over here, click settings, and you can either apply a filter, so you can actually show only the ones that are doctors, or you can click add sort, choose field. I want to sort it based on the created date from old to new, add sort. And now we've got the first item appearing first and the second item appearing second. So this is a very cool way of adding it. It's a very cool way of making changes. And again, just to show, if I go again to my dataset and add any other element, so let's say we go over here, add item, we're going to call it item 3, and here we can say English teacher. And again, as soon as I go back, you will see that now we've got 3 items. I personally think this is a very cool way of adding things, and you can play around with the layout. So if you can click layout, you can just change it like this or like that or like that, how you want it really. You can also edit the design of each specific element. So I can make, actually if I change it right now, it will actually have an impact on all of them. So I can do this and all of them will change. And it's just a very quick way of actually adding a repeater, and that way you can populate that information and change it anytime you want. Now, this is very cool and all, but it's not good enough for everybody. Sometimes you might need to add some code to add some different elements. For example, you might want to register a click, a button click, or you might want to check if there's a software engineer, then add a specific icon. How do you do that? I'm going to show you right now how to do it using VELO. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do now that we learned how to do it manually and how to do it using the database or the collection is actually just how to show you how to manually or using code add information or add different tiles to your repeater. And again, you can use this method to, let's say, add a text box, and whatever the user enters, it adds to the repeater. Or you can get that information from the database and then do whatever you want to process or do whatever you want to do with the information and then present it back in the repeater. Let's have a look at how to do that. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to click again on the repeater, and I'm going to personally cancel that connection with the database, which means we're going to go back to the default values. So now we're not connected at all. And because this is not connected, even if I click on the items, or let's actually disconnect that as well. So we can say not connected, not connected. And we can go over here and say not connected, not connected. And I think it might have just glitched because 3 items just came. So yep, again, not connected. There we go. And this David Bullis is actually not connected to anything. So let's just change it to default just so that you don't get confused. Now, how are we going to do this? Well, the first thing that we want to do is we want to click over here, and that gives us room to basically put some code. And what I want you to do is I want you to first come over here inside of this onReady function. That means this function is going to run automatically once the page loads. And what we can do is we can remove everything in here just because it's a lot of extra clutter. And we can create something called a list or an array, which basically means a set of values. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically type in let repeater items equal to, and we're going to open and close that bracket, which means it's an array. It's currently empty, but we can add things to it. Now, after that, what we want to do is we also want to go ahead and create an object that will basically store random values or random numbers. So what I can do is I can basically, and I already have this ready, and we can right click, click format. Basically, this generates a random set of numbers between up to 100. And this again gets me a random number. And at the end, I get that random number, the first one, and I add it to the new random number. Now, why am I doing this? Because each of these items through code needs to have its own unique number or ID. Otherwise, it will not be duplicated. So just to make sure that it is actually random, this is the method I do. There's multiple different methods, but it's just the easiest one to do in a tutorial. And just to show you, if I come over here and type console.log random, which is the name of this random function here, and I click on preview, because we put it on ready, once the page loads, we're gonna get a random number called 253. It's exactly what we want. So that will be the ID. So now that we've done this part, what we can do is we can go down. And just to let you know, if I click preview, you can see that we already have one item right now. And just random item. What I'll do is I'll go like this. And then I will say repeater items dot push, and you can see it tells you appends a new element, so it adds a new element to our list. So I'm going to say dot push. I'm going to open a bracket, and inside of here I'm going to put a zigzaggy bracket. Now here I'll place something called ID, and I'm going to place that random object. I'm going to add a comma, and then the best way to do this is basically to come over here, and this says hashtag text2, so I'm going to say text2 is equal to, and for now let's just put a manual value. So let's say something like Monica. We're going to add a comma, and inside of here we're going to put text1. So we're going to say text1, and then again we're going to add a random value over here, so we can say something like basta. There we go. Now what we're going to do after this is that we're going to click enter, and let's get the number or the name of the ID of our repeater, which is repeater1. And to refer back to it and to basically interact with it, all we need to do is just say $W bracket hashtag, and we're going to say repeater1. We're going to put that exact ID that appears for us like this. After the bracket, we're going to come over here and we're going to put dot, and we can say data. We're going to be opening, or actually we can just say equal to repeater items. So that's that list that we created at the very beginning, which starts off being empty, and then we add an element to it. Now let's do something really cool right now. If I just go ahead and run this, nothing will actually happen. And the reason for that is because this repeater was already set. And even though we updated the data, we didn't actually refresh the table itself. We didn't refresh the repeater itself. So the actual information continues to be the same. So now if I click back to editor, what we need to do to fix this is we need to come over here and we can say $, bracket, again quotation marks, and then repeater1. And we can say data. Oh, sorry, we can say on item ready, just like this. We're gonna open a bracket and then another bracket inside. We can put a $, and then item, which allows us to actually interact with the items inside. We're going to add a different comma, and then we're going to say item data, and then we're going to say index. We're going to put an equal sign, a small arrow, and we're gonna keep it like this. And what this allows us to do is that it actually allows us to use item data to refer to specific things over here. So we can go now and we can say $, and we're going to type in item. Inside of here, we're going to add a quotation mark and then a hashtag. And then now we can actually refer to this text. So this is text2. So we're going to go ahead and type in text2, and we can say .text. After that, we're going to say item data .text. So it's the same, the name, now we're referring to the name of it over here. So we can say text2, which is why I wanted it to be the same, just to avoid any confusion. After that, we're going to do the exact same thing. So we can actually just copy this like that and add it here. This time we're going to say text1 because we're referring to the text underneath. And I'm going to say text1 is equal to text1, which is this one. Now this is actually all we need for that. So let's have a look now. If I click on preview, you can see that we've got Monica and Basta now added. So this is actually manually how to add information to a repeater, and you can get the information. You can actually hard code the information like here, or maybe you can even have a data set just like we do here, query that data set, and then automatically in a for loop fill this up. Not just that, but this way of actually creating things allows you to create really dynamic UI on your website. For example, and we're about to do that right now, we're going to create a to-do list. For example, let's say you've got a form which only contains 2 text fields. You've got basically, let's go ahead. You've got first name and occupation, just like the one that we have here. So let's add these two. Like this. And let's click on a button. Like that. Now, let's say you want to, maybe just to avoid confusion, because I know people do get confused, let's change this to occupation. Let's say you want the user, every time they actually click on this button, to get the first name, last name, and add a different element here. Well, you can actually do that as well. So let's go ahead and click on here. We're gonna leave this over here. So now we're gonna start with Monica Basta, just like we have here. But I'm also gonna show you how you can make it dynamic. So we're going to click on this button. We're then going to click on click here. This allows us to write code inside of this bracket, and everything inside of this will be executed. And all we need to do is we actually just need to copy this code over here. Like this. And we're gonna add 2 different things. So we want to refer to the values that we get from here. So I can come here and say let first name equal to $, hashtag, and this is input 1. So I'm going to put input 1 dot value, I think. Yep. And then we're gonna copy it. We'll put it underneath. This one will be occupation. And for input, we're going to be putting 2. And now, instead of saying Monica here and hard coding it, we can say something like first name. And over here, we can say occupation. Let's have a look at how this will turn out. I'm actually not sure if this will work or not. I haven't done it. I sort of winged it because I thought it would be cool to add. So let's click on preview. You can see that we're starting with Monica. I'm going to come here and I'm going to say bolus. Cup. Let's click on button and you can see that it gets added here. Let's click on, okay, so you can see that it keeps on just replacing it. Let's find out why. And that is because every time the button is clicked, we get this as repeated items and we started off being new. So instead what I want to do is I actually want to say that repeated items is equal to repeater data. So let's actually get the data that we have first or existing in our view, and then we're going to add to it. And I think actually this is all we need to update this. So let's have a look. Let's click on preview. Let's go ahead and add David test. And now we've got another element. Let's add another one. We can say Magid doctor. And you can see that it keeps adding. Let's just add a different one. I'm just going to say a random thing here. Star. And basically we can keep doing this. And this is how to manually add different things on a week's repeater. Now, in this tutorial, you've learned how to manually add different texts. You've also learned how to connect it using the dataset, and then also how to connect it or how to connect information to a repeater using manually editing it. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, if you learned a lot, please make sure you do leave a like and a subscribe. And please make sure you leave your feedback below so I can improve these videos and maybe even make personalized videos for you. Thank you for watching.